with an MBA. Following a 5-year stint with the audit staff of Price Waterhouse and Company, he undertook a 30-plus year career in higher education executive positions. While he is now retired, Pete Fackler maintains ongoing professional interests in capital markets and investment decision-making. Pete has been a community activist working on behalf of people with hearing loss. Pete played a leadership role in bringing closed captions to live theater productions in Rochester. He was part of the original team of National HLAA board members working under the leadership of Board Chair Ann Pope to introduce the Walk for Hearing in support of the association. Pete worked alongside Sue Miller, Jeanette Cantor, Barb Law, Vern Thayer, and many others to launch the Walk for Hearing locally in Rochester, and continues his Walk for Hearing support with the Buffalo event held annually each fall. Pete is a member of the boards of the HLAA Rochester chapter and of the State Association Board. He also serves on the National HLAA Board of Directors, where he is treasurer and where he served a stint as chairman of the Board of Directors. So with that impressive introduction, I'm going to introduce Pete Fackler. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Barb. The Cochlear Implant Group meets 3 times a year. This isn't part of I'm making up for not coming to the podium. Meets 3 times a year, the third Tuesday of November, March, February, and May, something like that, but it's at the website. Don't take my word for it. It's at the website. I'm really fortunate to work with Sue Miller and Al Sefradini and Fred Altreith, who are kind of the group that helped me figure out what the programming should be. And we haven't figured out February yet, but there may be an opportunity to patch in with the New York City chapter where they're bringing, I forget that guy's name, it doesn't matter, but a really good source who can talk about cochlear implants, the history and so forth. But we will be nailing that down soon in plenty of time for the newsletter to have the appropriate publicity. So, thank you. I have to tell a story. I don't usually tell stories about myself, as I find it, everybody gets bored with it. But Peter Lee said that we're all getting older. And I found out last night that I, in fact, am getting younger. Now, here's how that works. Kelly Barrett, whom I'm married to, took me out to dinner last night because it was my birthday. And this came up at dinner with a conversation with the waitress. And she said, well, how old are you? And I said, I'm 68. And Kelly Barrett, who cannot play, she does not have a poker face. She got this look on her face and she said, that's not the truth. He's not 68. So this waitress, bless her heart, she's really a real all-star. She said, oh, of course you're not. She said, you can't be a day over 55. Isn't that wonderful? Now, I didn't get a chance to leave the tip for her because Kelly was paying for this, but I think it was a pretty good tip. So anyway, so here we go. I have for you at the end of this, I have some notes with some of the specifics I'm going to talk about. And for those of you coming here via Zoom, if you want those notes, I'll be glad to send you the document if you'll just get in touch with me at pcf.hlaa@yahoo. That's my personal email address for hearing loss things. I would say in that connection too, if I haven't said this before, in my role as a board member for National, I welcome your comments about what we're doing, suggestions and so forth. And I hope to find a way to be more persistent about asking for that kind of feedback. So you have my email. My phone number, my cell is 814-319-2083. You're perfectly welcome to contact me using voice, but I pick up about 5% of my calls, and you'll find that I'm better if you text me rather than use the voice process. So there are no PowerPoint slides today. You know, it's typical. Charlie and crew say, well, do you have PowerPoints to use? And I say, no. And I'm of enough of an age that that I used PowerPoint, but I always had someone to do the PowerPoints for me. And now that I'm not paid to work anywhere, I don't have anybody working for me. And as an IT person, I'm not very good. So no PowerPoints. And for those of you who like PowerPoints to follow along, I apologize. So here we go. Now, the headline for this was something about what's new at HLAA, and I'm taking liberty with that, and we'll cover some new things, but I would like to cover kind of the basics, what we do, who we are, and so forth. So we're going to kind of meander through the basics and then talk about some of the programs that Hearing Loss Association has in place in conjunction with chapters and state associations, and we'll go from there. So Hearing Loss Association is composed of the national organization, the chapters, and the state organizations. Now I'm going to read a paragraph here, and this is directly quoted from the Hearing Loss Association website. HLAA, its state organizations, and chapters are all one organization. States and chapters are a critical part of the national organization and carry out the mission of Hearing Loss Association within states and communities while they represent HLAA. This reach into the grassroots across the country is crucial to creating awareness about hearing loss through local programs and outreach. HLAA is dedicated to helping our leaders across the country, that's us, to start and grow a successful state organization, chapter, or chapters within a state. So you can read this. I thought this was so important. It's buried in part of the website. That's a pretty crystal clear statement that the National Board and management is making about the relationship with chapters and state organizations. But there's a but here, and just for full disclosure, I think it's important to note that the legal construct is different. That is, Hearing Loss Association of America and Hearing Loss Association of America Rochester chapter and Hearing Loss Association of New York State are all separate corporations. So if you ask a lawyer, we are all separate. We have separate 501c3 registrations. We keep a separate set of books. We're responsible for our own finances separately. But that doesn't mean we don't operate as one. But I just wanted to point that out because it's kind of a funny thing to say, well, we're all one, but then legally we stand on our own. That's the method of organization. When I was first on the national board, I was talking with old friend Tom Gibbons, who used to be over at New York Hearing and Speech. And we talked about, I was getting to know the national organization. And I said, you know, it looks to me like there are some tensions between the grassroots and the national office. There are sometimes disagreements come up. People second guess what's national's doing or don't think national's doing enough, whatever. And he said, oh, yes, of course. And he cited several organizations with national offices and then grassroots networks where, you know, the arrangements worked, but it's not always neat and tidy. National is not telling us how to think. We are bound together through a common mission, and through all of us wanting to make the world a better place for people with hearing loss. So, in that there are 3 organizations, there are also 3 potential memberships that we as individuals can have. As Art mentioned, $45 annually to join the national organization, $55 for couples. Veterans memberships are cost-free, although I must say I'm not sure if that's an introductory 1-year affair or whether that's all, forever. So I'm not sure about that. A national membership entitles you to receive bi-monthly Hearing Life magazine. Membership fees don't really support national financially. They pretty much pay for the magazine. As you know, when you go to the website, you don't have to be a member to access all this information. If you were to call national and you're not a member and you have a problem or a question, you're going to get answers. You're not going to be asked, well, are you a member? So the membership is really about the magazine. For Hearing Loss Association Rochester, of course, it's $10 annually to be a member. And it seems like we're breaking new records in terms of the size of our membership, which is great news. Membership dues here support the ongoing work of the chapter. Veterans memberships are cost-free, and that's forever, right? So, now for Hearing Loss Association New York State, if you are a member of the national organization and you reside in New York State, you are automatically a member of Hearing Loss Association New York State. So membership, and I can't tell you what membership in the state association really gets you, but I'm really quoting from the bylaws on that. So the mission of Hearing Loss, we all know this. The mission of Hearing Loss Association is to open the world of communication to people with hearing loss by providing information, education, support, and advocacy. Now, the board and management of Hearing Loss Association last spring adopted a strategic plan. I wouldn't call it that. It's really a statement of strategic intent. It has a 2-year time frame, and it addresses 5 themes, if you will. And I'm going to be handing this out. You can take notes, but you'll get a copy of this. It's expanding engagement, which is a way of saying increasing diversity of the people we reach, also expanding our reach to people with mild and moderate hearing loss, because we tend to reach only the group that has profound hearing loss. Seize technological opportunities. It's clear, Art was mentioning, we all know the technologies that are evolving are so important to us in maintaining and improving access to communications. So the national organization sees that as a very important area of emphasis. Advocacy and influence is more broadly access at government levels and access with corporations, particularly those that are developing technologies. Stewardship of financial resources is about keeping Hearing Loss Association going and able to operate. And the last one is building a movement. This is the one I like. And I'm going to read this one. Self-help and community are foundational Hearing Loss Association values. One of our great strengths is our ability to provide a platform for people with hearing loss to learn from one another. Hearing Loss Association must stay true to our roots to build a community of support. The goal, strengthen chapters in efforts to engage and to learn how to provide outreach and support and to grow beyond the chapter structure. So you'll read this and we can talk about that more at another time, but that's the statement of strategy for Hearing Loss Association. Okay, now I'm going to jump around a bit, but I want to talk about the rollout of OTC hearing aids. You probably know that a Hearing Loss Association, at the website, they have an OTC landing page, much as we do, with the tip sheet, which is, we're using here as well. There's a shopping checklist and the data, and this is as of sometime in October. There were 19,000 views at the landing page, 83,000 views at the tip sheet. How there could be more views at the tip sheet without going to the landing page, I'm not quite sure, but, and 4,000 views of the shopping checklist. There have been, this is again, it's through, this isn't up to today, it's through October at some point, 1,500 media mentions in print and digital and broadcast, national, local, and regional outlets. An example of just a few of the media that we've been mentioned in: WebMD, New York Times, Washington Post, Consumer Reports, USA Today, LA Times, New York Daily News, Boston Globe, AARP.com, the AARP Bulletin, and the PBS NewsHour. So we've been all over the place. We were, I don't want to call this dumb luck, but we hired for the first time a really top communications director back in the spring. And it was no secret that OTC was going to roll out in the fall. So she got us ready to pounce and to be able to respond to questions and so forth. We've done 90 plus interviews. I believe that's all Barbara Kelly. Resources have been shared with chapters, and that's an ongoing story. If you have a question about my opinions on OTC hearing aids, don't ask me. As a member of the national board, I don't have any special insight into that, except that I think one person's description of this as being like the Wild West that is somehow going to shake its way out. I think that seems to be pretty obvious. So it appears that the way that the national office has handled the beginnings of this has been good. And if you ask Barbara Kelly, the CEO, about what's going to happen next, we're really not sure. I mean, we have to try to be nimble and responsive. And I asked the question of Barbara and Kevin Frank, the chair of the board. I said, where's the data? How are we going to learn what's happening? I want data. I want to know what the sales are of the different products and what the success rates and everything. And it's not altogether clear how we're going to get data. And it may be the way it often is in business. The data it's not precise and perfect. It's suggestive and it's helpful, but it has its shortcomings. So we'll see. Switching topics, the national convention. Every year, the Hearing Loss Association sponsors a national convention. We missed 2 years, Sue, with the bug. We did 2 virtual years, I think it was. I want to talk just a little bit about the 2023 convention and then the 2024 convention, okay? The second one will be a disappointment, but anyway, I'll be teasing you a little bit about 2024. 2023, the convention is in New Orleans. The site is the New Orleans Marriott Hotel at 555 Canal Street. The zip is 7130. The phone is she keeping up with me on these numbers and everything? I guess so. Thanks. The phone at the hotel is 504-581-1000. Room charge is $199 a night. Add $25 for a second room occupant. And you, in some way, which I can't describe for you, when you book your hotel reservation, you're going to need some kind of information from the hearing loss website about your having registered or something. You'll have to go to the hearing loss. Or
the zip code you gave doesn't look right. So,
no, then it isn't right. The zip code is 70130. Thank you. The convention registration. Now this is, I don't quite. The convention registration is $375. That's the early bird registration through March 31. But there is a lower registration fee for chapter leaders. And so this needs clarification, and I can't clarify it for you as I stand here because I just saw this yesterday and I thought, I don't understand this. So we'll have information on that, okay? Information to come on that. Online registration opens December 8th, so that's right around the corner. And the early bird registration again through March 31. So after that, the registration fee goes up. Two important dates, perhaps for some of you. The call for papers is open until December 9. So that's this week. Now, I don't know how long this has been out there, but I just saw this. But, if you're interested in presenting at the convention, I would get in touch with the national office, and maybe if you're not ready, they can extend that deadline for you. And awards nominations are open until December 16. So you knew that. So these are two dates that are operative for perhaps for some of us here regarding the convention. The final point of note is that the dates, I don't think I gave you, were June 29 to July 2nd. That's a Thursday through a Saturday. And on the Wednesday preceding that, there is a chapter leadership workshop set for Wednesday the 28th from noon to 4 p.m. I do not have details, but that sounds like something that we might want to check out. Could be some good information. And then there's the 2024 National Convention site. So I'm going to have to be cute here and say, I know what it is and I can't tell you. And the reason is that the deal isn't final. They are still negotiating, but they have a really good deal for us. All I will tell you, because I know Sue won't let me out of the room if I don't say something. So it's west of the Mississippi. That's helpful, right? And two, I don't think we've ever used this city before. Now I don't have the list, but I'm pretty sure we've never been to this city. So, and I wrote Barbara Kelly. I said, what's going on? Everybody wants to know. And she told me, she's very excited, but she said, just please don't say anything until we get a deal done. So just as soon as I know, we'll get the word out on a flash email to everybody, okay? I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know. I don't know, because I think maybe once in my life I saw the list of all the convention locations. But so now you can maybe run a little, throw a buck in. Everybody puts a buck in, and you can figure out what city it is. And if you start saying, I'm not going to say yes, that's it. I can't. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes.
Isn't there a special break or maybe even free for first-time attendees? I think there was.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. If there is, it would be at the website. I didn't see it as I was flying through there yesterday. So the Walk for Hearing, we're switching gears now. The Walk for Hearing is a major nationwide awareness-raising program that generates funding for local chapters and alliance organizations and for National Hearing Loss Association. Costs of producing the walks are shared by national and local sources. HLAA Rochester chapter members who participated in the Buffalo Walk this past September included, and I think I got everybody here, if the little scroller thing, the website's right. Kelly Barrett, Carol Loftus, Jerry Loftus, Janet McKenna, Sue Miller, and I was also in that group. There is still time to give in support of the Walk for Hearing if you're interested. Carol Loftus has been kind of our go-to walker. So I would suggest if you're interested in giving, you go into Carol's place there at the Buffalo Walk and make a gift to her team. The schedule of walk events for 2023 has not been released. There's some information about that, but they don't have the whole schedule with dates yet, as you know, so you've been in touch. And now I'm really touching base going through programs here. The Get in the Hearing Loop program, otherwise known as GETHL. If you're interested in this program has been around for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, 7 years. Early on, a woman by the name of Juliet Sturkin was kind of the guiding light. Charlie's been involved a little bit. I think Don Bataille as well. This group, this is a comprehensive resource for hearing loop technology. They provide technical information and advocacy where loops are concerned. It's an effort that Hearing Loss Association began, and it's now evolved into a really dynamic, volunteer-driven program. It's really a nice segue from something that National financed early on. Now it's all volunteer-driven. Next, and I'm just kind of ticking through some things that you might be interested in. The Industry Consumer Alliance for Accessible Technology, also known as ICAT, ICAAT is the acronym. Again, you can find this at the website. It's funded by, this is a mouthful, the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, which it turns out is a unit within Federal Department of Health and Human Services. The program is a collaboration among Hearing Loss Association, Gallaudet University, and American Institution of Research. They seek to bring consumers and technology developers together. Think about that. Consumers and technology developers together to foster technologies that work for people with hearing loss. That's much like the work that took place, I don't know, sometime before 2010, where Hearing Loss Association worked directly with the phone manufacturers to get compatibility with hearing loops and with hearing aids. So that's a continuation of that kind of work, except now it's a funded collaboration among 3 organizations. And here's the important point. We are encouraging, National is encouraging volunteers interested in getting involved. Now, I don't know what that says. I don't really know what that means, but if you think you're interested, we have some people here who are really good in the technologies. And my thought is, if you were to get involved, that could be good for everybody. But you know what time you have on your hands. But it's ICAT. You'll find details at the Hearing Loss Association website. And if you want to sign up, it's relatively straightforward. You fill out your name and your email and so forth, and you go from there. Other items of interest. Hearing Loss Association works hard to provide comprehensive support resources for chapters and state organizations. If you haven't been online at the website and gone to the chapter resources page, it's worth doing so. There's a lot there. And my view is we should use that. And if we see other things that we need to tell National, okay? Hearing Loss Association has a presence on social media. I can't comment on the effectiveness of it, but we're at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and maybe among others, I don't know. Online communications such as the e-news, blogs, and groups online communities are available. And again, all you have to do is go in and poke around and decide to involve yourself in these things, and they're there. Webinars are stockpiled at the website. I don't know how far back they go, but pretty far. And sometimes some of these older webinars are really useful bringing up and using again. And for those of you who are financially inclined, the audited financials in the federal Form 990 are also available at the website. So you can check out what's going on in terms of Hearing Loss Association's finances. I will tell you, however, that they're pretty strong. And that strong is a relative word, but I can recall my first convention when I looked at the Hearing Loss Association audited financials. And I thought, oh my goodness, this organization's just about out of business. We had no money. There was no cash on the balance sheet. There were more liabilities than assets. It was a mess. So we've come a long, long way in 15 years. And so that we can say that Hearing Loss Association, we're not robust financially, but we're stable financially. And that's a big deal because it means sustainability and a future that we can count on. The last item that I have before I just open it to questions, comments, and whatever, I had thought that I might talk about the hearing number question. And we had two academics visit the Hearing Loss Association board at our last meeting. And they had different, I would almost say opposing views. They looked at it, the idea is we need a number that everybody can say, like you can talk about your blood pressure is 120/80 or whatever. Well, we don't have a number, a handy dandy number. And some people think we need that number so that by having a number that everybody agrees on, then more people will seek help for their hearing problem. Now that's a leap, and whether you agree with that or not, that's what this discussion is. So I had thought, well, I'll talk about that. And I went back through the materials that I had, and I pretty much convinced myself that that was going to be a step too far for me, that for me to stand up here and try to repeat or condense what Frank Lynn from Johns Hopkins said was really not something I should do. I am considering, with Bruce Nelson's agreement, putting together something for the newsletter. But I would be much more comfortable doing it that way because I can proof what I write and know that I'm not making some really stupid generalizations that misrepresent. So, but if you are interested in this topic, if you visit this is a website address, JHU cochlearcenter.org. That's Dr. Lynn's his cochlear research center at Johns Hopkins. You want to find out what they're doing on this hearing number thing, I think you can find out. And that's my report. I'd welcome any questions or comments. And I tried to kind of cover the waterfront in terms of what we do. And what did I not cover that you wish I had? Put it that way.
Can you talk about how the staff is doing? Because I know some have left and new people have come on. And so.
That's a really good question. If you go to the website, you find 9 pictures. That's it, staff of 9. It's at least short by 1 because, what is her name? Meredith Resnick, the communications person I talked about, her picture's not there. But we have 5 positions open, and you can read what they are at the website. Hiring has been difficult. you read in the newspapers, there's a part of the population that doesn't want to work. And for the people who do want to work, pay's going up, and people are, I mean, it's a seller's market if you're in the labor market. And so we've had challenges in hiring to some of the lower level positions. The top positions are filled. Barbara Kelly's the CEO. There's the director of development, which is Marilyn DiGiacomo. There's Meredith Resnick, who's the communications director. There's Lise Hamlin, who does advocacy. And there's Vinny Indrawati, who is finance / operations. So the top people are there. And I think, my opinion is it's the strongest group we've ever had. I think we really have a good group, but you need other people. we're just very, we're light. And that's something that's at the top of Barbara's list. But you know, there's a lot going on with OTC. I mean, the organization is stretched at this point, and they've run some searches, and they've had people they want, and they take another job. Barbara says that our pay is competitive. We haven't always been able to say that, but we did push wages up a bit. But you know, the Washington areas, with all the taxpayers' money that's in Washington, real estate values are through the roof, and all the pay is up. And so a little organization like Hearing Loss Association gets challenged to keep pace. But Barbara says our pay is okay. Our pay levels are okay. So just a question of working our way through it. But that's a good question, because that's on my mind. And in fact, at our next executive committee meeting of the board, I'm going to say, hey, you know you're working on it, but is there anything we of the board can do to help move this along? Pete, because you need to be staffed up.
We have a question from Julie Olson here. You can see it in the chat. What are the membership numbers? How many? And is membership definition going to change? Chapters were asked not to have dues years ago. Our chapter dropped them. It has not gone back having local dues.
I can't speak to chapters being asked to not charge dues, so I don't know about that. The national membership, I don't know the number either. I can tell you that it's flat to down. And yes, we are likely to, in some way, change the definition of membership. And as a board member, as board members, we're waiting for management to propose. My only input on this, because I can tell you we've been talking about this since 2005 when I went on the board. We had a membership committee, and they used to talk about endless stuff about how to drive membership up. And it seems like in our culture, people just aren't joining as much as they used to. But my input to this conversation has been brief, and all it has been is, listen, I think we're open to anything, but please don't tell my friends who have been members of Hearing Loss Association since 1979 that suddenly we don't have members anymore. I think you're going to really upset the apple cart with that, and they have heard me. Okay, so we're going to have members, but the question is going to be, how do you become a member, and what does it mean to be a member? There is concern that there are some members who think that membership fee supports the organization, where it really is not very meaningful. So they're working on that. The board's waiting to hear management's assessment of this. And so I expect something. I don't know when. We've been talking about this for so long. So I hope that's helpful, Julie. There was somebody else too, Charlie, right?
Yes, Pete, this is Fred. I have one comment regarding websites. When you get the newsletter, many times they show websites. Of course, you can't click on them there. You would have to paste it into Google or someplace. But if you go to the home page and look up where the current newsletter appears. There, the site is highlighted and you can click on it. I think this is something we should make mention of in the newsletter, that this is how you can do it a lot quicker, and you can have them all up there at one time and click on the ones that you want to see.
Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. And Fred, I have available, and I'll say this to everybody, if you want, I have paper copies of my remarks today, if you want those for people here. But anybody can, if you email me, I will be glad to send you the document. And Fred, I have the 3 website addresses in there for national, for the New York State Association, and for Rochester. It's in my program notes. So that might be helpful too, as a kind of a reference for you, and others.
Thank you.
Peter, I'm going to make a statement, but there's a question in here, okay? When the pandemic started, up until then, we had almost 40 years of in-person gatherings. Everything was in person, so to speak. And then the pandemic hit and the tech team got us on Zoom, and we ran everything for 2 years on Zoom. And now we're getting back to this hybrid, okay? But while we're on Zoom, we're picking up people from across the country coming to various things, okay? Meetings and so forth. And the thought goes through the mind of some of us who've been involved in technology on a high level scale, that perhaps the Hearing Loss Association can get a lot more leverage and power if we begin to network beyond what we normally perceive as our chapter area. So for instance, in our thinking, we immediately say, well, let's cover Western and Central New York. But what about things nationally? They've got a national calendar up now, I know, with things up nationally. But is there any discussion at the board level of the national about the potentials for the future if we begin to network on a lot more organized basis?
I think that's a great question. We've had discussions, but not focused, if you will. So, I mean, I really believe in this. If we can scale ourselves, we have a lot more power in our numbers than we're able to generate. So I don't think there's any question that you're on target there. I think some of the question is, what does national do versus what do the chapters do? I mean, we have, with the cochlear implant group, I've reached out in kind of modest ways, not patting myself on the back. And we've got people from Maine to Florida to California who come to these meetings in Zoom. So I think well, Julie's on here as an example, right? She heard about the meeting. I will say about the calendar, I went into the calendar at the national website, and it's almost empty. Nobody's using it, including us. We're not using it. So that facility, there's more than one calendar, so I may have not been where I should have been, but I think I was at the right place, and there were just very few meetings that had been set up by the chapter so that people knew that there were other meetings. So
Pete, just want to quickly point out Carolyn Odio is joining us from Washington State. So I believe she's 3 hours earlier there.
Oh, good morning. How are you? Great to have you with us.
I'd also like to comment that not only Julie Olson is here from Appleton, Wisconsin, Carolyn is from Washington State, Mike Miles is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Elaine McGaffrey is from Chicago, Illinois. So all of these people are joining us this morning, which I just think is so exciting.
Well, okay, Mike and Julie and Elaine and everybody else, how did you learn about this? We'd love to know. That's one of our marketing people wanting to know how we're doing this.
Pete, I learned about it because an email popped up in from your chapter yesterday, and I went, "Whoa, that's tomorrow." But because there was such an interesting speaker, I decided I'd go.
Pete, Pete, the people that, a lot of the people you're seeing here today pre-registered to be sent the Zoom invitation. It's a process that Lauren designed, and there are now over 235 names that are sent the invitation, and a good percentage of them are from out of state. So that's all they had to do is register and they'll get the invitation.
I would like to explain here to Mike and Elaine and Julie that I didn't know you were on here. I am looking at a camera here and your pictures are back over here where I can't see them. So, yep, Mike Miles is becoming a friend of mine through some conversations, and he happens to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan. So he went through the crazies the way I did when the Phillies went to the World Series and then came up a home run or two short. So, but it's great to see all of you here. And for my friends who I know here and I didn't say hello, it's because I didn't know you were there. So there's Mike.
Pete, I concur with what Elaine said. I got an email, but I didn't get it till yesterday. I joined several Rochester meetings during the pandemic, and I found it to be an outstanding chapter with some great topics, and I learned a lot as well. And we're trying to do the same thing down here with our regional chapters, and so I go to these other chapters like yourself and North Bay, California and East Bay, California, partly to learn, but I did come in today just to hear you and what you were saying about national. So there's several reasons why we do it. This hybrid concept that you seem to be doing today, I can't see the people in your room, but we've had several people down here in our chapters ask about doing a hybrid event. So I'm also trying to learn how this works, and so we could implement it, because I think it's the way of the future. I think it really is. People got spoiled by this Zoom thing, but other people want to get together in person as well. So I think we need to try to satisfy both sets of parties if you want to have more than 5 or 6 people show up to a meeting.
Mike, thank you. The quality of these meetings is directly laid at the doorstep of Sue Miller, Barb Law, and others who meet every summer in committee, and they come up with a menu of meetings. So we're glad to have you with us. I would say also, if you're looking for alternatives, the New York City chapter has a really robust menu of programs, almost as good as Rochester's probably. And they're worth checking out. John Taylor's your contact if you're not on that list, because and they're very willing to have more people come in. So Art, you're getting a little bit of an answer there. And it's you look at what's happening, it's the grassroots that's doing it. We're reaching out, we're getting it done.
Thanks, Pete. I just wanted to answer the question that I think I see about 30 or 32 people here today. And that's not a bad turnout, but it's not also typical. I think frequently we have even a little more. So I don't know if that helps the fellow with the question, but this is a fairly robust chapter. And the other thing that occurred to me, I was just asking Eric, who just finished reading the book by Sherry Eberts. I'm almost done. Sherry Eberts and Gail Hannon. And I asked him, was there any mention, this is a book for consumers, was there any mention of HLAA in that book? And he said no. And I think that's kind of an area, I don't know how one would go about pursuing it, but it's kind of an interesting thought.
Joe, are you noting that, 'cause I want to be sure I understand, are you noting that an HLAA board member wrote a book and then Hearing Loss Association isn't mentioned in the book? Yeah. I'm gonna, for political purposes, I'm gonna duck that one real fast. I'd be happy to talk to you about that in private, because that's not an isolated incident. And it's just all I want to say, but thank you for.
Pete, we've got a question from Michelle, and there's no last name, but I don't think it's the Michelle from our chapter. But anyway, the question, this is a very technical question, well, technical answer. What's your take on Bluetooth LE and AuraCast, and how that's going to impact HLA's Get in the Hearing Loop initiative and their position paper on hearing loops? So I think the first question, that this may be beyond my scope to explain the time we have. What is Bluetooth LE and AuraCast? Do you have anything to say?
First off, I have virtually no knowledge of the Bluetooth technology. I will repeat what I have heard from people who I respect, who do have knowledge. And Charlie, you may want to jump in then, but I have been told that Bluetooth superseding and making obsolete induction loop technology is something that's way, way off. That's not happening tomorrow. And that the Bluetooth technology, I don't know the name that was repeated there, is evolving and being developed. So it's an unwritten piece.
Right.
Still.
The Get in the Hearing Loop group, I'm as you mentioned, I'm a member of the blog, and that was a really hot topic about 3 months ago, and it started because it was introduced at the last convention. It's not developed yet. It's only in the prototype stage. I've heard folks say it could be 10 years down the road. But basically what these new technologies, one of the limitation of Bluetooth right now is generally, there are some exceptions, it's only one-to-one. In other words, if you're using Bluetooth, only one person can receive it at a time. The whole theory of Bluetooth LE and AuraCast is that multiple receivers are possible, but that's still under development and way down the road.
Thank you, Charlie. That was as lucid and clear as could be. That's really helpful. What else do we have?
Pete, this is Fred. I might mention too that the Albany chapter has some excellent programs on their sites where you can sign up, and they're done by Zoom, and they'll send you the thing to tie into it, because they've had some very good speakers there on cochlear implants.
Fred, thank you. So Mike, Miles, and others, you have more sources to check out. Anybody else?
I have a question. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, you're
Yes.
good.
Okay. I'm wondering, in terms of the website, hearingloss.org, if it's possible to make the search function better. Do you know anything about that? Because I search on things like telecoil, and I get nothing much about telecoil. And that's really a very major topic. And you had mentioned ICAT. So I just went and searched on ICAT. Now, I'm not sure how to spell it. I think ICAT. But of course, I didn't get anything on ICAT. So I just, this is why I'm asking, because I've worked with a nonprofit organization that uses Google within their search engine for their nonprofit website. And if it's nonprofit, Google will eliminate the ads. And Google, of course, why reinvent the wheel? You know, Google knows search. So I'm just wondering why HLAA-National doesn't use Google for their search engine. I don't know if you could answer that, and I'm not sure I'm talking to the right person about it.
Well, that's a very specific question, and I don't have a specific answer to it. I can tell you that management understands that that website needs work, and that's all I can tell you. But it's on their radar that we need to do work, and I will pass along your sense that the search function is not what it ought to be. The ICAT, the acronym is ICAAT.
I'm going to search for that right now and see what I get.
All right.
Okay.
Good luck.
But at any rate, thank you.
Thank you.
I just did that search on telecoil. She's right. There's a whole bunch of articles about policy about telecoil, but nothing about telecoil itself, like how it works or asking for it or anything. So yeah, website needs work. Maybe I'll type something up, send it to him. What else?
Well, she also mentioned something about big on Google, and the reason maybe if Google does remove the ads for non-for-profits, it's possible because National is supported by advertisers of corporations. Maybe they don't want the ads removed, so that might have something to do with that. I don't know. I'm not a tech person. It's just common sense and knowing a little bit about, having been on the website, there are advertisers, and that's by design.
Actually, what I'm talking about are the ads that appear when you do a Google search. They eliminate those ads. I can give you an example of a nonprofit organization that does this, and I can put it in chat, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, if you would like.
Sure, that would be good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're about done. I have copies of these notes. If you want them, see me afterwards. And thank you for hosting me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter. You did a great job. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about National I didn't know. By the way, on hybrid sessions, we had a lot of things on Zoom that now we only have in person. And the reason for that is not because we don't like hybrid people coming in. We really want people coming in. It's a production problem. We have one camera here. This whole setup, we have to set it up every time we do this because this is a church meeting room. If you want to have hybrid where you can do things within the whole room, you need several cameras, several mics. It's a real production issue. As the technology moves forward, we're watching all these technologies, and as it becomes more feasible, we'll do it again. For instance, when we had the demo center on Zoom, because we couldn't open the demo center in person, we had people coming in from the West Coast to the point where Charlie, we used to start at 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. He moved it to noon because we had people coming in from the West Coast. We didn't want to make them get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to a demo center session, and they were doing that. See, so over time, we will try to make this hybrid capability more universal, but it's really a technical issue right now, which leads into a major cost issue, which we have to deal with. So anyhow, I want to thank Joe Gale, the captioner, and all the people that facilitated this session. I want to thank all of you that came. I want to thank Peter for a great session, and I want to thank all the people that came in on Zoom. This is wonderful to have people coming in that can't make it here. Remember the evaluation forms either on their table or the form at the bottom of the invitation, okay? And I'm just going to say this and then invite Barb to come up for the prizes. Next month's meeting, January 3rd, is going to be Ask the Audiologist, Matt McDonald and Carolyn Poulat, both audiologists. Come with your questions. This is a chance to find out from the horse's mouth what the hell's going on. So, Barb, what do you think? Well, some prizes here.